Hi, welcome to the first of a series of Fireside chats that we've termed 26 Years with Greg Royce. I'm David Wilson, currently chairman of the St. Peter's Old Boys Association and member of the council, and got the enviable job of introducing you, old boys and friends alike, to the series and to Greg Royce. We're sitting here in the reception area in the heart of St. Peter's next to this raging fire with a tipple in hand, of course, and look forward to reminiscing about Greg's time here at St. Peter's. Some of you old boys will recognize this foyer, this reception area, having been summoned to the headmaster's office, which is behind me, after a little misdemeanor or two. But back in those days, you weren't walking out with lines having to be written. Greg, you've been here at the helm for 26 years. That's a quarter of a century. Put in century terms, that's a long time. Greg was headhunted in 1995 to become the headmaster at St. Peter's, soon after the birth of democracy. And a lot has changed, clearly in the country, in the school, which we look forward to hearing about. He was promoted to rector, looking after both the boys' school and the girls' school, and he retires at the end of this year. Greg, let's start at the beginning. I'm sure St. Peter's proud history with transformation had some role to play in your decision to join the school.
I'd heard the story of Richard Todd, the great head here, who the third head of the school, fourth head, who had, following the 1976 Soweto riots, had decided to open the school to all races. And on the eve of the new term in 1977, he was called at home by F.W. de Klerk, the police minister, later to become our president. And F.W. de Klerk said to him, if you allow children of other races, black children, into your school, I will bring the police and order them to remove the children from the school. And Todd said to him, if you do that, I'll have the world's press here recording you doing it. And he went ahead, and no police pitched up. But the courage at that time was absolutely extraordinary. So that was very important for me to know that. And it was wonderful to have black kids. The kids are kids, and to come to a school and have them in the boarding house, and it was just so important for the future of the country. And I couldn't bear being in a situation where that wasn't allowed. So yeah, that was
I mean that's fantastic. That's fascinating. I was in the boarding school here back in the 80s, just before your time, Greg, and you could feel that very natural, open, diverse culture back in those days. But I've been very fortunate in the last couple of years to be kind of reintroduced to the St. Peter's community. I've had 3 boys through the system here, which is another 12 years. And personally, I've been absolutely blown away by the school. I mean, in my mind, certainly must be the preeminent prep boys' school in the country. And this doesn't happen by chance. It takes solid leadership, like all organizations, based on a bedrock of unshakable value system that has stood the test of time. But running a private school, or any school for that matter, must be very challenging. More so than, I would say, an organization, a company. You've got so many different stakeholders, different constituencies. But running a private school in this climate over the past 26 years, and more recently you've had this pandemic, and more recently to that you've had the riots. There's just been a lot happening. And I'd like to hear from you, Greg, what in your mind has been the most challenging aspects of running the school, bringing it to where it is today, and what has kept you up all these nights?
First of all, I should just say, while there have been difficult times, it's been an absolute joy. But there were times when I doubted myself. Amongst the problems would have been obviously finance. We have to acknowledge that a school is a business, but that's not all it is. But it has to break even, and if it's to develop, you have to make a surplus that you can plow back into the facilities and the staff. So that's been a challenge, and sometimes times were tough. We've had chairmen who've had different philosophies, who've wanted us to produce a Rolls-Royce product, but at the price of a Toyota, which is very difficult because a good education costs money. So that's always been in the back of my mind. But to add to that, I've always felt that in order to ensure sustainability, the school would have to have a war chest to cope with unexpected calamities. So COVID is a case in point. What do you do when you lose 20% of your pupils, or you find 20% of the parents can no longer afford to pay the full fee? If you don't have some sort of backing of that nature, your own insurance, you're going to be in trouble. So I remember a headline in the UK which read, Eton's endowment is greater than that of Chelsea Football Club. And the next day in the Telegraph, the headline read, Eton headmaster says, so what?
Brilliant.
Okay,
Exactly.
so that's been troublesome.
Yeah.
And then, as in any most businesses, I think your only real and your most important tool is the people.
Yeah.
And if your people aren't comfortable and happy and fulfilled and feeling valued, they're not going to deliver the best product. And running the school, there's been a mantle around my neck that the school already had such a great name and a great reputation amongst schools, because that's who we talked about when I was at other schools. When we came here to play sport, we'd come away, we were so impressed. You could go to Cape Town and people knew St. Peter's. You could go to Natal and they knew St. Peter's. So I always felt it was a huge burden to A, appoint the best people, and then B, make sure they were fulfilled and empowered. And in the post-apartheid years, after 1994, the glaring differences between how black employees were treated and how white employees were treated, and the salary differentials and the opportunities, and rectifying those was difficult. I think I carried a lot of guilt for a long time, and I don't think I moved as quickly as I could have. But I was also blinded by my subconscious bias. But I was painfully aware that things weren't right. And the school is a microcosm of the community. And if you're not reflecting what it should be, then you're failing.
Sure.
Yeah. So more recently, that's become much easier. We've had wonderful support from black staff, black parents who've opened my eyes to things that I hadn't seen before. And now I feel that we're playing with a full team, a whole team. So it's a wonderful feeling of lightness. And apart from that, I've always seen it as a challenge. We've always felt that the kind of education we offer here should never be the same as. Every school says it educates the whole child. Intellectual, spiritual, emotional, physical, and so on. And yes, that's what they should do. But what makes St. Peter's different is from the intellectual side. We have never taught the way we see everybody else teaching. We have relied on research-based methods to ensure that we reach children optimally so they can really develop. And not force everybody to do fractions at the same time of day in the same space when half the class doesn't feel like doing it.
Sure.
And not accepting that 65% is a pass, which means that you don't know 35%. That's letting a child down. You've got to go for mastery. And if they're good in a particular area, you've got to supercharge that. You've got to help them. You've got to give them every resource you can to make them feel fulfilled, whether it's on the sports field or ringing the chapel bells or playing a musical instrument. So that's been a continuous drive. And your original question was, what kept me awake at night? Well, the truth about that is, I think I'm good at research, I'm good at finding ideas, I'm good at inspiring, I'm not a great implementer. And I learned a bit later than I should have, to appoint staff who were good implementers, better than I.
Yeah.
And when I did that, oh my word, then things really took off.
As we've seen, I mean, over the past 26 years, we've seen massive growth in the school, both in terms of infrastructure and the number of kids. Over your time, more recently, we've seen the introduction of a girls' school. We've seen the introduction of a pre-prep, which I believe was filled in 48 hours. We've seen the addition of some beautiful new fields. And the most beautiful field in my mind is in Vukuzan. One of the better facilities amongst all the schools in the country, I would say. And that's thanks to the generosity of an old boy family, the Mole family. But, you know, also we've seen the increase in the number of kids. I think we exceed 1,000, and that's a lot of kids. It's been a phenomenal growth story. But at the same time, we've never seemed to have lost that essence of what the school stood for. The school was founded in 1950, the old farm school. You know, and when you summon to the headmaster's office as a parent, which fortunately for me wasn't as frequently as when I was a kid, you kind of stepping over chickens and hedgehogs and peacocks, and you just get a feel that this is a farm school. And you continue to produce outstanding kids, kids that are sought after by all the top private schools. I think this year alone there are 19 scholarships awarded to your kids. And I see it. I see these St. Peter's kids through senior school. They just seem to have that bit of an edge, which was remarkable to see. I'm very, very proud of what the school stands for and what it produces. Like all good sportsmen, Greg, I mean, it's always nice to try to time your retirement to perfection when you're at the top of your career. You must be feeling like Graham Smith, leaving St. Peter's in a very, very good place, and a far better place than probably what you took over many years ago. You must be feeling very proud of that. I wonder if you could share with us some of your highlights over your period.
I'll just make a comment about you saying that I must be feeling very
sure.
proud.
Oh, okay.
And that is this, that one thing has driven me every single day I've been here. Mm-hmm. And that is when an old boy, whether it's a parent like yourself that's on campus or an old boy visiting, I've always asked them, how does it feel? I would be shattered if they said it feels different from what when they were here. I've never tried to change that. I've tried to strengthen that. It was very exciting to open the girls' school, but I was determined that we would limit the effect on the boys' school. We knew it would change the school, and many people were opposed. But I was determined that it wouldn't affect what the boys get out of what they get here. And in retrospect, when I think back now, it was a highlight in that it made the school stronger. We're making better use of our resources. Our surplus is bigger. And so we can do so much more for the children. We can provide better facilities. Without those extra 500 odd, 600 odd girls, we couldn't have provided the 2 all-weather surfaces. Well, certainly not as quickly as we did. We couldn't have, there's just so many things we couldn't have done. This amazing junior prep that the boys have in the old sports hall with their own slide. I mean, that is one of the most effective and impressive teaching spaces in the country. So it's a retrospective highlight.
Sure.
Highlights are when our staff offer conferences, which they do on a regular basis now. Maths conference, music conference, language conferences. The demand from the other schools, including high schools. So we have people from Hilton, Michael House, St. Andrews, sending their staff along to leadership conferences, to pastoral care conferences. I mean, that just blows me away.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's people acknowledging that they think you've got something to offer. And I'm sure you were hoping that I would mention specific events.
No, I think your internship program has been a massive success.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, you're dead right. So we started with our first interns in 1997, and it's been an almost vertical learning curve. Oh my word! When I think of the things that we should have done and didn't do, and the tenacity of those people who stuck it out, compared with what we do now. So we have 25 interns now. We're pretty sure if we're not the biggest, we're one of the biggest intern programs at a school in the country, teacher interns. And there's no other prep schools that run intern programs. They might have one or two interns. So these young kids are super bright, but they have very, very difficult backgrounds. Single parents, or they might be the only adult they are the child in the child-led family. So they have younger siblings. Parents have died. They provide for them. They feed them. They help them with their homework, and then they study. And they come here and they give service to our little boys, and just the most wonderful, gracious, loving service that you can imagine. They work their butts off. Their results at university are astounding. But because of these difficult backgrounds, if we ignore that, we're not going to get optimum service or performance from them.
Sure.
So each kid is different. Each kid has different hang-ups and difficulties. So we spend a huge amount of money and time with experts sorting them out and giving them the tools to cope with the things with which they struggle. We would like to take them on ourselves, but we can't. Our funders wouldn't like that. So that's what's different. And there's so much confidence in the program. We work with the University of Joburg. They have seen what we achieve. So they've developed their own degree, a special degree, distance degree, which is going to be a world first, which we're piloting here at the moment.
Remarkable. Gone are the days where an elite private school institution can act in a bubble and need to interact and make a difference to society at large. We've got such a difference between the private and government schools. And I think there's a big role for private schools.
Yeah.
But I suppose on a funnier note, I hear over your time there was some controversy on the athletics field when a four-legged athlete won the 800 meter. Take us through that, Greg.
Okay. We had a dog, my family and I. It was my eldest son's dog. He was a very small little Jack Russell. His name was Milo. And he's a male and he's very single-minded. He had escaped from our garden and although we tried to keep him in. And he'd wander around the school. He loved to play with the kids at break. He used to go to the junior prep. I think he sensed the difference in size and pinch the kids' lunch out of their bags and then pee on them. Of course, nobody ever said anything to me. Nobody would ever criticize the headmaster. But I'm sure the teachers hated him. They always say that. Everybody always hates the headmaster's dogs. Anyway, so we had one athletics, and we locked him up, and I was up on the field, and I always like to do a job. I don't like to sit and observe. Anyway, there was the open 800 started, the gun went off, and the boys started to run. And then suddenly I was chatting to one of the teachers, or Ray Moody or somebody, and we heard this cheer go up. So when I turned around, I could see the boys running, but everybody was pointing in the distance on the other side of Newlands. And there I noticed Milo running with them, with gay abandon, tongue hanging out of his mouth. He came all the way around past the chapel with them, with the lead runners, all the way around again for the bell, and carried on. And he finished ahead of the front runner. So he won. By then the crowd was on its feet, cheering and chanting. And Liam, my son, was in Bishops. So Bishops claimed the points for the win.
Only in St. Peter's.
Yeah, yes.
Greg, thanks for those awesome insights. Really has been very interesting. It's been great. Really look forward to the rest of the series of Fireside Chats. But until then, I think let's stoke the fire and have another tipple. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, Dave.
Cheers.